Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote something that has stood the test of time. Our life is what our thoughts make it. This phrase seems simple until you really stop to listen to it. If your life is shaped by your thoughts, then everything you allow to occupy your mind, people, habits, expectations, comparisons, is literally building or destroying who you become. Most people try to change their lives by adding things: more money, more recognition, more distractions, more relationships. The Stoics thought differently. They believed that true strength comes when you remove what weakens you. Today, you will learn 11 things that need to be quietly cut out of your life. Not with anger, not with announcements, but with awareness. 1. Stop explaining yourself to those who hurt you. When someone hurts you, especially someone you trusted, there's an almost automatic impulse to explain how you felt, justify your actions, organize your words in the hope that the other person will finally understand your pain. It seems logical to think that if you explain yourself well enough, you will be understood. But this is one of the most common emotional traps. The truth is that, in most cases, the person who hurt you has already made a choice. It wasn't a lack of information. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a decision. And when someone decides to act without consideration, no subsequent explanation changes the fact that your boundaries were ignored. Stoicism teaches us something uncomfortable, yet liberating. Not everyone deserves access to your emotional side. Not everyone deserves to hear your pain, your reasons, your justifications. When you explain too much to those who have hurt you, you are not seeking clarity. You are seeking validation. And putting your peace in the hands of those who have already shown they do not respect it is too high a risk. Over-explaining also creates a dangerous cycle. You speak, the person minimizes. You go deeper, they distort. You insist, they defend themselves. In the end, you come away more tired, more frustrated, and often feeling even more misunderstood than before. Not because you expressed yourself poorly, but because the other party never had any real intention of listening. Silence, in this context, is not weakness. It is self-control. It is a conscious decision to preserve your emotional energy. It is recognizing that some conversations do not bring closure. They just reopen wounds. Marcus Aurelius said that the best revenge is not to become like the one who caused the injustice. This means not getting caught up in the same emotional game, not reacting impulsively, not trying to convince those who do not want to change. Moving on without lengthy explanations does not mean a lack of maturity. It means clarity. It means understanding that you do not need the approval of those who disrespected you in order to move forward with dignity. You owe no emotional loyalty to those who broke your trust. You owe no availability to those who showed disregard. Many people confuse closure with confrontation. They believe they need a final conversation, a well-structured speech, a perfect response. But Stoicism teaches that true closure is internal. It happens when you decide to no longer carry the weight of what you cannot control. When someone who has hurt you comes back asking for help, attention, or closeness, a simple and firm no is enough. You don't need to justify your decision. You don't need to list everything that happened. Boundaries don't need defending. They exist to protect what is essential. Breaking the habit of over-explaining yourself is a daily exercise in emotional discipline. At first, it may seem harsh. It may seem like you're being cold. But over time, you realize something important. Your mind becomes lighter, your reactions more restrained, and your presence more assertive. Well-placed silence doesn't just create distance from others. It creates closeness with yourself. It teaches you that your peace is worth more than any attempt to be understood by those who have already shown they don't care. And when you choose this stance, something changes profoundly. You stop reacting and start acting. This is the power of silently cutting off the need to explain yourself to those who have hurt you. 2. Goals that no longer make sense. At some point in life, we all create goals based on who we were, not who we have become. The problem begins when you grow up but continue to carry goals that no longer represent your values. Holding on to a goal just because you started it can become an invisible prison. Abandoning a goal is not giving up. It is choosing honesty with yourself. The Stoics valued the wise use of time. Seneca said that we don't have little time, we waste it. And one of the greatest wastes of energy is insisting on something that no longer makes sense. Evolve in silence. Adjust your course without having to explain it to everyone. Not everyone deserves access to your plans. 3. Overexposing the end of relationships. When a relationship ends, whether it's a friendship or a romance, there is an emotional need to talk, to share details, to seek validation. But overexposure rarely heals. Most of the time, it prolongs the pain. Stoicism teaches that dignity is knowing what to keep quiet. Talking too much about what's over keeps you stuck in the past. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that you control your mind, not events. When you choose silence, you choose to move on. 4. Raising your voice in public. Losing emotional control in public may seem like strength, but it is almost always exposed fragility. Think of someone shouting, exploding, losing their composure. Does that inspire respect or discomfort? Now think of someone who remains calm while everything around them is chaotic. The Stoics believe that mastering oneself is the greatest form of power. Speaking softly, firmly, when everyone expects shouting, is a sign of self-control. And self-control is freedom. 5. Speaking ill of others. Whenever someone speaks ill of another person, something happens automatically. Trust is broken, because those who spread negativity never seem secure. Stoicism invites us to conscious empathy, not to accept abuse, but to understand that everyone carries invisible struggles. You don't have to like everyone, but you also don't have to put anyone down. Character shows up in conversations where you could attack, but choose not to. 6. Constant comparison. Comparing yourself to others is one of the quietest forms of suffering. You compare your backstage with someone else's stage and always lose. Epictetus said that peace begins when you accept what is not under your control. The only fair comparison is with who you were yesterday. All real progress begins when you respect your own pace. 7. Automatic use of social media. Social media is not the villain. Lack of awareness is. Opening apps without intention trains your mind to be constantly distracted, and a distracted mind builds nothing profound. The Stoics valued presence, being fully engaged in what you do. Use social media with purpose and leave it without guilt. 8. Seeking external validation. Seeking external validation is one of the most subtle and dangerous forms of emotional slavery. It does not appear as an obvious weakness. On the contrary, it often disguises itself as sociability, ambition, desire for recognition, or need to belong. But deep down, living for the approval of others means handing over control of your own peace to factors you do not govern. From an early age, we are conditioned to seek applause. First from our parents, then from our teachers, and later from society as a whole. We grow up associating personal value with praise, acceptance, and recognition. The problem arises when this logic remains intact in adulthood. At this point, every decision begins to be filtered by a silent question. What will others think? Stoicism directly confronts this dependence. For Stoics, the only legitimate source of value lies in character. Everything that comes from outside, opinions, praise, criticism, rejection, belongs to the realm of what we cannot control. And everything we cannot control should not govern our peace of mind. When you live seeking approval, you start to adjust your behavior to please others. You say what they want to hear, avoid unpopular positions, and silence your own convictions to maintain acceptance. Gradually, your life ceases to be an expression of who you are and becomes a constant performance. This is tiring. It fragments you. It creates a permanent internal conflict between who you are and who you pretend to be. Many people confuse external validation with love or legitimate recognition, but they are different things. True love does not require you to betray yourself. Genuine respect does not depend on you giving up your identity. When acceptance requires you to diminish yourself, it is not acceptance. It is control. The most meaningful moments in life usually happen when you act in line with your own values, even without applause. Often, they happen in silence, far from collective approval. This does not mean living in isolation or indifferent to others. It means living with clear criteria, where the opinions of others do not take center stage in your decisions. Stoicism proposes a profound reversal. Instead of asking if you will be approved, ask if your attitude is correct. Instead of seeking praise, seek consistency. Instead of living to be accepted, live to be honest. This change is simple in theory, but it requires courage in practice, because it often leads to temporary loneliness. When you stop depending on external validation, something powerful happens. Criticism loses some of its impact. Praise ceases to be fuel. You become more stable, more predictable to yourself, less reactive to your environment. Your self-esteem no longer fluctuates according to the reactions of others. The Stoics did not preach cold indifference. They preached inner autonomy, the ability to remain at peace even when the world disapproves, to maintain dignity even when there is no recognition, to act correctly even when no one is watching. Breaking away from the search for external validation does not happen overnight. It is a gradual process of self-knowledge and mental discipline. It begins when you observe your motivations honestly, when you recognize how many small decisions are made just to avoid judgment, when you accept that not everyone will like you, and that this is natural. True freedom comes when you understand that you don't need to be approved of to be valuable, that your identity does not depend on the agreement of others, that your peace cannot be traded for applause. From that point on, your choices become clearer, your relationships more honest, and your life more aligned. Silently cutting off the need for external validation does not make you distant. It makes you whole. Someone who does not need permission to be who they are. And this kind of strength, discreet and internal, is exactly what the Stoics called true freedom. 9. Perfectionism. Perfectionism is often confused with excellence, but in practice it rarely has anything to do with doing your best. It is much more closely linked to fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of failure, fear of being judged, fear of not being good enough. Perfectionism does not drive action, it delays it. It creates the illusion of constant preparation while quietly impeding progress. Many people are stuck with the idea that they can only start when everything is aligned, when conditions are ideal, when they feel completely ready. The problem is that this moment almost never comes. Life does not offer perfect scenarios. It requires movement amid imperfection. And while the perfectionist waits for the ideal scenario, opportunities pass, experiences fail to happen, and confidence weakens. Stoicism views imperfection as a natural part of the human condition. For Stoics, making mistakes is not a sign of moral failure, but of learning. What really matters is not avoiding mistakes at all costs, but acting with the right intention and accepting the consequences responsibly. Stoic excellence is not in the flawless result, but in the attitude toward the process. Perfectionism also creates a hostile relationship with oneself. Every mistake becomes proof of incompetence. Every failure turns into severe self-criticism. Over time, this attitude wears down the mind and undermines self-esteem. People begin to measure their worth solely by their performance and never feel truly satisfied, because there is always something that could have been better. Another silent aspect of perfectionism is excessive control. The perfectionist tries to predict all variables, eliminate risks, and guarantee results. But Stoicism teaches that much of life is beyond our control. When you try to control everything, you end up constantly frustrated. Accepting limits is not resignation, it is wisdom. The Stoics advocated the idea of conscious action. Do what is within your power, as best you can, with the resources available in the present moment. This means acting even with uncertainty, even with fear, even without guarantees. Real progress comes from imperfect repetition, not from idealized waiting. Replacing perfectionism with the pursuit of excellence is a profound change. Excellence means commitment, honest effort, and openness to learning. It means doing well, not perfectly. It means accepting that growth involves trial and error, adjustment, and continuity. Every step taken, even if flawed, builds something that inaction never builds. Perfectionism also affects relationships. It creates unrealistic expectations about yourself and others. It generates impatience, frustration, and difficulty in dealing with differences. When you accept imperfection as part of life, your relationships become lighter, more human, and more authentic. Silently cutting out perfectionism requires disciplined self-compassion. It is not about settling or lowering standards, but about aligning expectations with reality. It's about recognizing that you can be demanding without being cruel to yourself. It's about understanding that personal value does not depend on flawless performance. True freedom comes when you allow yourself to try without the obligation to always get it right. When you understand that making mistakes does not diminish your value. When you realize that imperfect action, repeated consistently, builds much more than any unattainable ideal. By abandoning perfectionism, you don't lose quality. You gain movement. You gain learning. You gain presence. And above all, you gain a healthier relationship with yourself. This is one of the most practical and liberating lessons of Stoicism. Living well does not require perfection. It requires the courage to act despite imperfection. Tend at maintaining unrealistic expectations. One of the most silent and devastating traps of adulthood is the construction of unrealistic expectations. They arise from unfulfilled promises, constant comparison, the media, society, and often from ourselves. From an early age, we are led to believe that life follows a linear logic, that our efforts always result in recognition, immediate success, or approval. The reality, however, is much more complex, unpredictable, and full of nuances that are beyond our control. Maintaining exaggerated expectations creates constant tension, as if we were sailing a stormy sea, even on calm days. Every failure, every delay, or every deviation from the ideal path is perceived as a personal catastrophe, when in fact it is just part of the nature of life. Stoicism teaches us that pain does not lie in external events, but in our interpretation of them. By expecting everything to go according to plan, we surrender our emotional balance to that which we cannot control. Unrealistic expectations not only affect how we view results, but also subtly shape our behavior. They cause us to insist on goals that no longer correspond to our reality, waste time and energy on pointless projects, or insist on relationships that do not add to our lives. The weight of these expectations accumulates and silently erodes our happiness, self-confidence, and ability to appreciate the present. Stoics such as Epictetus and Seneca remind us that what is truly under our control is our mind, our actions, and our choices. The outside world, including people, opportunities, and outcomes, follows its own logic. Life will never be completely predictable. Accepting this does not mean passive resignation, but strategic clarity, acting diligently, focusing on what we can control, and calmly accepting what we cannot change. A powerful practice against unrealistic expectations is the conscious review of our goals. Ask yourself, does this goal really bring me value? Or am I seeking something that others value? Is this standard achievable, or is it the result of idealization? Am I prepared to deal with the unexpected without losing my emotional balance? This type of questioning, repeated with discipline, helps to align desires with reality and strengthens the ability to adapt, an essential quality for a Stoic life. Another important dimension is the acceptance of impermanence and uncertainty. Nothing is guaranteed. Life changes constantly. People change. Circumstances change. The more we cling to fixed and unrealistic outcomes, the more suffering we create for ourselves. Instead, the focus should be on effort and integrity of actions, not on the illusion of absolute control. Every step taken with awareness and honesty has value, even if the end result does not meet expectations. Maintaining realistic expectations is not giving up on dreams. It is laying the groundwork for a more resilient and enjoyable life. It is learning to differentiate between what is aspirational and what is illusory. It is recognizing that every unexpected challenge can be an opportunity for growth, that every obstacle contains silent lessons, and that every disappointment is actually an invitation to mature emotionally. Finally, letting go of unrealistic expectations releases extraordinary energy. It frees up space to appreciate real achievements, strengthen authentic relationships, and live more consciously. It allows us to face frustrations without losing ourselves, and to find satisfaction not only in results, but in dedicated effort, applied discipline, and maintained integrity. As the Stoics always remind us, true happiness does not lie in achieving all our external expectations, but in cultivating a balanced, resilient, and free mind. 11. gossiping and speaking ill of others. The last, but perhaps one of the most insidious habits we can cultivate, is the tendency to speak ill of others or gossip. At first glance, it may seem harmless, even fun or socially useful, but when we look at it honestly, we realize the silent and corrosive effect it has on ourselves and others. Gossip is not just an act of communication. It is a choice of energy and attention. Every time we engage in this behavior, we are directing our mind toward criticism, judgment, and negativity, rather than cultivating understanding, empathy, and personal growth. When we speak ill of someone, we are often ignoring the full context of that person's life. Each individual carries experiences, pains, internal struggles, and challenges that are not visible. Gossip reduces this complexity to a superficial detail, creating a distorted narrative that serves our emotional impulses more than the truth. In doing so, we not only damage the reputation of others, but also reinforce patterns of thinking that keep us trapped in judgment, anger, or envy. The impact of gossip on our minds is profound. It feeds the ego because it puts us in a position of momentary superiority. It makes us feel informed or socially connected, but this feeling is illusory and fleeting. Stoicism teaches us that our value does not increase by diminishing others. On the contrary, every negative comment we make is a small weakening of our own discipline, self-control, and inner peace. Furthermore, gossip creates an invisible cycle of social tension. It undermines trust, deteriorates relationships, and promotes an environment of suspicion and silent competition. People close to us begin to question our loyalty and character. Our reputation, which should be built on integrity and respect, is eroded. Instead of cultivating true connections, we become entangled in a web of superficiality and negativity. The Stoic alternative is simple, but it requires constant practice. Cultivate the mind before any conversation. Before repeating something about someone, ask yourself, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it helpful? Will this word help or hurt? If the answer is no, silence is the best choice. Controlling the tongue is controlling the spirit. By developing this awareness, we create space for words that edify, that bring us closer, that transform positively. Avoiding gossip also means investing in active empathy. Trying to understand the complexity of each person's life helps us replace judgment with compassion. When we think, maybe there's something I don't know, maybe they're struggling like I struggle, our mind calms down, and our words reflect more awareness than emotional impulse. This practice not only protects others, but also strengthens our own emotional resilience. Another crucial point is the effect on our inner peace. Every time we participate in negative conversations, we create mental distractions that take us away from our own goals, growth, and self-mastery. Talking about others consumes energy that could be directed towards self-development, personal reflection, or acts of genuine kindness. Stoicism reminds us that every moment is precious, and that the way we use our words directly reflects the quality of our mind and life. The power of avoiding gossip goes beyond silence. It is about leading by example. When we refrain from this behavior, we show others that there is a different way to relate, based on respect, maturity, and discernment. We cultivate an environment of trust and authenticity. We become people whose words carry weight, whose presence conveys security and integrity. Therefore, giving up the habit of gossiping is not just an ethical choice. It is an investment in emotional freedom, self-confidence, and inner balance. Every conversation avoided, every comment restrained, every judgment suspended is a step toward a clearer mind, a more peaceful life, and deeper relationships. True strength lies not in diminishing others, but in elevating oneself through discipline, empathy, and integrity. As the Stoics remind us, we cannot control the actions of others, but we have complete power over our words, thoughts, and reactions. And when we exercise that power consciously, we transform our lives and quietly impact everyone around us in a positive way. In the end, the challenge that remains is simple but profound. Choose to be a builder, not a destroyer. Choose words that liberate, not imprison. Choose, above all, to be a living example of self-control, wisdom, and humanity. Stoicism does not promise an easy life. It promises a strong mind. When you cut out what weakens you, there's room for clarity, discipline, and peace. Don't announce your changes. Don't ask for permission. Just live according to what strengthens your character. If this video helped you, leave a comment with the point that impacted you the most. Continue this journey. And remember, true freedom begins within.